leader Enrique Tarrio is set to be arraigned following his arrest in Washington Monday night. Tarrio is suspected of setting fire to a Black Lives Matter banner stolen.
I'm not going to cry about a group of people that don't give a crap about their constituents.
They call themselves Western chauvinists. They're certainly male-dominated.
And this right here shows you the power when we, the right wing, unite.
Leader of the Proud Boys makes a stunning revelation.
I am a Western chauvinist who refuses to apologize for creating the modern world.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
Breathe fire like a dragon killing demons. Go hard, yeah, we gotta seize the day. Hellfire raining down upon my people. Like you're gonna bring the hate.
What's the joy?
Bury it today. We all been lost, we all been cold. Everyone rise to our brethren code. We got your back, we all been low. Let's all rise to the brethren.
But in no other nation do people enjoy greater freedom, opportunity, and prosperity than here in the United States of America.
USA! 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 USA!
Do you condemn those people? Can you say that right now?
Okay, I can't say that because I think
Why not?
condemn is a very strong word, and I think it's a little bit too strong. Because I'm the head of the organization, and I know exactly what we planned and what we didn't plan, and we did not coordinate to assault the Capitol.
Enrique Tarrio is the Proud Boys' current leader. And over the past 4 years, he's seen the group grow from a few guys in a bar to thousands of members across the United States.
Right now, the most important thing that we have going for us is that we all share the same belief. The belief that we should put America first. America first! America first! Who's safe? Who's safe? We're all Proud Boys! We're all Proud Boys!
By blaming Barry for something, but today I feel like being a good person. I'm not going to blame him for anything. I did blame him earlier on the news brief. But today I have a very special show, and I said I was not going to do that. I posted the promo for my next guest, and I got both sides of the aisle. I got people that gave me so much shit for this, and they're like, "Don't give him a platform. Don't talk to him. He's every name in the book." And I've been called all those names too. And then I got a lot of people that cheer him on, and I think that's why he's so popular. And I'll give you a quick little rundown. When I first heard about my guest, which is his name's James Fishback, I was like, okay, I was intrigued. And then I heard him say a whole bunch of stuff that felt good. And I'm like, oh, this is just another one of these politicians that is blowing smoke up my ass and is trying to get me to vote for him. And as time progressed, I live by clips. I don't have time to sit there and fucking watch a show for fucking hours. And I'm like, okay, he's making sense. So then the other question mark I had was, okay, all these cool things, how's he going to implement that? And the only way that I was going to get an answer to that is if I met him in person or interviewed him like I'm doing now. But fortunately, just a couple weeks ago, he came to Miami. He's another thing that I got to give it to him is that he is everywhere. I have never seen a person campaign as much as this guy or put flyers out for places that he's going to go. And I got to meet him, and I'm like, I'm going to challenge him, and he's going to fuck this up. And he didn't. He is scary intelligent, scary charismatic, and when I say scary for opponents, I think. Now, I'm going to tell you this as a person for the first time in his life in Florida politics. A lot of you know me. I work very local. Florida is dear to my heart. I was born here. I was raised here. And I think that, yeah, you can sit there. I'm sorry. Florida is very dear to my heart. I've knocked on every door in District 27 about 4 times since I started doing this in 2004. And never have I been so confused as to who to put that checkbox next to. So not only am I giving you guys a view into who James Fishback is, I'm getting it at the same time you guys are. I'm truly am the definition of an undecided voter, and that's one of the reasons why I want to bring him on the show. I finish with this. I've met 3 of the 4 candidates. I've met Jay Collins. I've met Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds at the beginning was very critical of us J6ers and then became a stark advocate for it. So I do have some loyalty to him, but I have to think about Florida's policies first when it goes to casting my own vote. And I think that's what you guys should too. So without further ado, I'm honored to bring my my guest in, James Fishback. How's it going, James?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. So I think a lot of my viewers, they have a mixed view. Either they love you or they hate you. Some people thought when I came out of prison that I was going to think a certain way, and I got a lot of hate from people that used to support me, and now they don't no longer support me, but I've found new friends. Let's start with this question. Who is James Fishback? Give me a little bit of your background and where you came from, because before this, I hadn't heard of you, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. So, who is James Fishback?
I was born and raised not too far from where you were in South Florida. I grew up in Davie. My dad drove the city bus. My mom worked at the county jail. Sister and I grew up with the best privilege there is, not white privilege, not any of that silliness, but the 2-parent privilege of having a mom and dad at the home to look after you, to discipline you, and to celebrate your wins when they came. I went to public school my entire life, and I went off to college in D.C., studied economics.
Sorry to hear
that. I left college to start an investment firm at 19 years old, and I did that for 10 years. Ran multiple different investment firms, the most recent of which is called Azoria, which I launched at Mar-a-Lago in 2024. And the premise was simple. Instead of investing in companies that pursue DEI, also known as anti-white discrimination, what if we created an investment fund that was purely based on the idea of investing in companies that hired on merit, that didn't engage in silly DEI foolishness, but hired people on what they brought to the table? And so I did. And so I'm proud to say that last year alone, Azoria, my investment firm, put $40 million of capital to work in companies that were rejecting DEI and instead hiring on skills and merit. And then in November of last year, I jumped into the governor's race because I was concerned about the direction of our state, and I still am. I fear that we are losing the state that we know and love, that farmland is disappearing before our eyes, that data centers that we never voted for are being forced on our communities. It's next to impossible for young people to buy a home in this environment. And last but certainly not least, crushing inflation is hurting everyone from a young couple trying to get by to our seniors who have built this state into what it is. And so how can we make Florida affordable once again? That's why I got into this race, and that's who I am.
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting background, especially coming from you're born and raised a Florida boy. I didn't know that. Till now. Because I keep hearing, you always see what the attacks are, and I keep hearing you're a DC guy. He's a DC guy that transplanted to Florida, and I just found out that wasn't true.
Yeah, born and raised. If you know Davie, I was born and raised in Davie, right on the border of where Davie and Venezuela, Weston, which is rather a Freudian slip, where Davie and Weston meet out by Shotgun Road and 148th.
Oh wow!
Went to public school my entire life, and my family's been in Florida for 4 generations. My dad, born and raised in Plantation. My granddad, after World War II, was a professor at Florida Atlantic University. My great-granddad, after World War I, owned a small hotel on Fort Lauderdale Beach. So I've seen the state up close, and in my own life, it has changed a lot. I mean, you know that in Dade County. I know that in Broward. There used to be citrus and cattle, and there didn't used to take 45 minutes to drive 2 miles up the road. And so a lot has changed, and I think the big part of this election is which path do we want to go down? Do we want to keep old Florida, or do we want to do something new? Do we want to go to new Florida?
Now, when did you move back? When you went to DC, you moved. Where are you currently? Where do you? What county do you reside currently?
I live in Madison County, small little county. It's two counties east from Tallahassee, about 20 miles south of the Georgia line. My wife and I live here, beautiful little town, very rural. She grew up in Pinecrest in Miami. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it's cool to have two South Florida people who are used to all the amenities of a Publix and a Walmart. And we've got a little convenience store here and a country buffet, but it's beautiful living up here.
I tried that. When I was 19, I got married and I bought a farm up there by Lake City.
Sure. Not too far from me.
And you know, look, as a person that was raised in Miami, I like the fast life. I love the city life. I love Miami. It's the last, at least for one cycle, it's the last red major metropolitan area in the United States.
That's right.
And you can't. There's bar none. It's not DC. It's not New York City. It's not Atlanta. It's not Houston, Austin, or Dallas. Right? Just because they're in Texas doesn't mean anything. So now that you live in Florida, I think you understand some of the issues that Floridians have, or some of the issues that we also did have before. Something surprising when I heard you speak to me was you're supportive of Ron DeSantis. I don't know why. I don't know. And again, this is how effective some of these attacks are online. Even somebody that's trying to be unbiased. I thought that you were going to be like either neutral on DeSantis. I saw you praise him heavily on there. What is it? I as a person who helped and worked for the campaign for DeSantis, and as a person that exposed Andrew Gillum for smoking meth and ordering male prostitutes, I was the one that released the picture. That was surprising to me. So the legacy, how would you continue that legacy, and what is your stance on like specific policy? What do you want to change? How are you going to make Floridians' life better?
Well, my view on Ron DeSantis is pretty simple. He's the greatest governor in Florida history, maybe the greatest governor in American history. Not because he talked good, but because when push came to shove, when they tried to shove their COVID tyranny down our throats, shut down our schools, our small businesses, threatened to arrest us for going to church on Sunday, Ron DeSantis stood in the way and said, "Not on my watch." You know, it's easy to go back and look in hindsight, COVID this, COVID that. Ron DeSantis followed the science very, very early on and said enough was enough. We're not playing the lockdown games that they had played in Michigan and New York, California, and other places. And so living here, having a grandmother who sadly passed 2 years ago, but was living during the heart of COVID, it was important to have a governor who stood up, of course, for me and my family, but also for senior citizens, that they wouldn't be shut out as they were in so many other parts of the country. And so, tell you the truth, Enrique, if Ron DeSantis could run for a third term, I would not be in this race, because Ron DeSantis has been the greatest governor we've ever had. Full stop. And that's just how I view things. And so my first job, if elected the 47th governor of Florida, first and foremost is we have to preserve what Ron DeSantis has already given us. Every Republican in the country would bemoan and decry the Soros prosecutors. Ron DeSantis was the only one to do something about it. He removed them from office using his constitutional authority here in Florida. And COVID and education and law and order and crime being at a 50-year low, certainly there's some things I disagree with him on. But by and large, he was an extraordinary governor. And so before we do anything new, we have to fight for what he has already given us, that foundation. And that's what I would do as governor.
I'm going to be honest about Ron DeSantis, and I think that's why I like him. He's a little socially awkward, right?
Yes.
But that's not what his legacy, like his legacy isn't going to remember him for, I think I was in prison for January 6th when this happened with the high heel boots or something to make him a little taller. History's not going to remember him for that.
No.
And Floridians aren't going to remember him for that. Floridians are going to remember him for making our lives better and changing. I think the legacy of both Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis comes in one aspect. It's not the policy. It's the cultural shift, right? Where it's not cool to be part of the old center, right? It's cool to be right-wing, conservative, and have these views. And I've seen your views, and they're extremely conservative. So let's talk about policy.
Please.
How are you going to make Floridians' life better?
Well, before you can talk about how we're going to make their lives better, what is holding them back today? And the easiest way to describe that is that Florida Atlantic University put out a poll earlier this year that found that nearly half of Floridians had seriously considered moving out of the state because it's gotten too expensive. And so, crazy idea, the best state in the country is only the best if the people who made it the best can afford to live there, work there, raise a family there, and retire there. And so we got to bring down the cost of everything from property tax, property insurance, auto insurance, electric bills, tolls. There's nothing too big or too small that isn't worth bringing down. And I'll just give you one example, property tax. I think that in the United States of America, to be able to own your home means you don't have to pay rent on it forever. And that's a real problem that's happening in Florida now, is that even if you've paid off your home 20, 30, 40 years ago, you're still paying more and more to the government every single year, even if you're not using those services. And that's wrong. It's wrong. It's unfair. It is effectively a wealth tax because, Enrique, if I buy $1,000 of Apple stock and it doubles, you don't pay tax if you don't sell it. If you buy gold coins and they double, you don't pay tax if you don't sell it. If you buy a home in South Miami or in Broward County and it doubles in value and you don't sell it, you don't pay taxes. And so the entire property tax system is broken and we have to eliminate it. And that's what Governor DeSantis has started this year. And that's what I would continue as governor.
So about the property taxes, a lot of people, when we said, hey, we're going to X property taxes, right? I think the only thing that remains, if I'm not mistaken, is like the school tax.
That's right. And there's a homestead exemption to $250, but it needs to get phased up over time.
You said something that was dear to my heart because people just say, hey, let's eliminate property taxes. You said that only applies to certain people.
Right.
Right? And what are those, what certain people would be the only ones that would be tax exempt from owning a home?
Florida residents who have been here for 5 or more years on their homesteaded property, up to $2 million in value. So Mark Zuckerberg's fourth home in Indian Creek on Miami Beach that's worth $170 million, he's still paying property tax. George Soros's luxury condominium at the Four Seasons in Brickell, he's staying property taxes on that. Airbnbs, commercial properties, vacation homes, the rest, they're still going to pay property taxes. What we are doing is we're going to deliver the largest tax cut in Florida history to make so that firefighters, cops, our seniors, entrepreneurs, small business owners have a little bit more money at the end of the year that they're going to be able to invest in their own future, be able to support their own families. And I understand where people come from, this frustration that, okay, if we eliminate property taxes, that might be great. But what about the revenue that would be used to fund these essential services? Well, let me just give you a statistic. In the last 5 years, property tax revenue in the state of Florida is up 76%. Enrique, they are collecting 76% more today than they were just 5 years ago. Ask yourself, in Dade County, are your roads 76% better? Are your schools 76% better? Are teachers, are they being paid 76% more? Are firefighters or cops, are they being paid 76% more? And of course, the answer to all of that is no. So where did the money go? It went to the hands of the county commissioners and the mayor, building all their vanity projects, building bridges to nowhere that do nothing for the average Floridian that's just trying to get by, raise a family, and retire. And so my view is very simple. If you do the math, it cost $18 billion to do exactly what we're talking about. Eliminate property taxes for every single Florida resident, up to $2 million in homesteaded value. It cost $18 billion to do that. And if you were to revert spending levels to back where they were just 5 years ago, you would save $20 billion. So Enrique, simply put, if we revert spending back to where we were in 2021, we will be able to eliminate property taxes so no Florida resident pays a property tax bill ever again. And that's an extra $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 that they have at the end of the year to be able to support themselves and their families. Governor DeSantis started this work this year, and I'll continue it as the 47th governor of Florida.
You know, we have a federal lawsuit against the U.S. government for what was done to me and 4 other of my guys. And a bunch of January 6ers have tort claims and stuff like that. And the reason why I bring it up, because if we're successful in our endeavors, like the first thing I'm going to do is buy property. And, you know, look, on my off time, I'm like, I start like going, okay, what am I gonna invest in? So I start looking for property. I'm never leaving Miami-Dade. I'd love to move up north, but my entire family's down here. I have a huge family. My aunt has 21 kids. In Cuba, there was no TV, so I was looking at property in the Redlands, and just about I got pardoned about a year and change ago, and I was doing the same thing. And now the same property, the same piece of land that was 200,000 is now 350,000. And I just find it, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Can I afford this? Can I afford this? So that's why I'm looking at my options on who's going to be the next governor of the state of Florida. Which brings me to another point as a January 6er. So our Florida Attorney General, and this is something dear to my heart too, like criminal justice reform, right now there's no rehabilitation, or there's no correction. You kind of just sit there and you don't learn a trade. There's no trade programs in prison or anything like that. I'm not advocating for violent criminals. By no means. They belong where they belong. But something that gave me hope, because I was a kid and I fucked up. I fucked up when I was like 19, 18 years old before I got married. And I have a white collar felony charge. What do you think about the position of the Florida AG to allow nonviolent felonies to get their gun rights back?
I support it entirely. It's the right thing to do. It's the constitutional thing to do. Nowhere in American history is there a pattern of permanently disarming people for a mistake that they made. And I say this because it's personal. My dad was arrested, charged with a felony, served a year and a day in the 1980s for a dumb mistake that he made. And that affected me and my sister. We never got to be around guns as kids. My dad couldn't own a firearm to protect our family. Heaven forbid something would happen to us. And so there are 1.2 million nonviolent ex-offenders in the state of Florida who do not have a right to defend themselves, their property, or their family for a mistake that was made decades ago. And I believe that true redemption is while you serve your time, and obviously you don't get to have a gun in prison, that while you serve your time and you come out, that you are restored both the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, and the full right to participate in our elections. That's something that I would fight for as the next governor of Florida, and our Attorney General is spot on that. And I'd work side by side to make sure we get that done.
Okay. Obviously I'm biased and I wholeheartedly agree with you. In 2018, something was on the ballot along with Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum that kind of became a controversy. And the reason why it was a controversy was because it was liberals who put this piece of legislation together and put it to the people to vote. And it was called Amendment 4. It was to get your voting rights back, for nonviolent felons to get your voting rights back. And I said, you know what, this is a good idea. I went door knocking. As I was door knocking for DeSantis, I was door knocking for Amendment 4. You know how much shit I got from the old guard for doing that? I got kicked out of so many Republican clubs because of that. They're like, oh, you were shaking hands with liberals and you want these criminals to get their voting rights. You know what they're going to do? They're going to screw us over. Look, liberty is liberty. I don't care about party when it comes to being able to get those God-given rights back. I don't care who I got to knock on the door with. But what's funny is that one of the main organizers of this piece of legislation, I had his personal number, and after it passed, I'm like, hey, can we do this for 2A rights? He never messaged me again, and he blocked me. So that showed me something that was their goal. That's what they thought was going to happen. That they were gonna give these voting rights to these felons, and they were going to vote liberal.
But they were not interested in actually fully restoring rights.
No, they didn't give a shit about that.
And by the way, for what it's worth, I proudly supported. I voted for Amendment 4 when it was on the ballot in 2018, and I think it was good legislation. Sadly, Tallahassee and the bureaucrats mucked it up, and the way they interpreted it was you had to pay off every last little debt. If you even had $3 of an overdraft on your commissary for a Snickers bar, that would prohibit you from being able to vote. And so the intention was obviously there. Tallahassee, deep state, swamp dynamics changed that. But My view is really simple, is that if you screw up, you go to prison. When you get out, that means you are rehabilitated. We know that's truly not the case today because, to your point, there's not trade programs there. Even today, if you're fully qualified for a job, Enrique, at the very end, once you've been extended the job offer, that employer can then deny your employment because they find out that you made a mistake 30 years ago on some mail fraud or whatever. Yep. And so I think we need to have a system that tells employers, no, you cannot discriminate against someone because of a mistake they made 15, 20 years ago. If you've truly hired them and you've given them the job offer, once it's all said and done, now it's time to do the background check. You cannot exclude nonviolent offenders for a mistake that they made in the past. And I think that's the truth. I mean, obviously, it always comes down to individual responsibility and accountability, and I'll never let people make excuses for their conduct. But if you really wanted people to reoffend and reoffend, you'd make it next to impossible for them to get jobs, which we've done. You'd make it really hard for them to be able to rent an apartment, which we've done. So we've created an entire system that says to someone who was arrested on January 6th or protested outside of an abortion clinic that they have a felony record and therefore they cannot live life. And, the 14th Amendment was created to eliminate this idea of two tiers of citizenship in the United States. And what we have right now, and I can tell you as the son of someone who had a felony conviction, that there is a two-tiered system in this country, and we need to fix that. And I will as governor. Whether you're white or you're black, Republican or Democrat, if you have served your sentence, you should now be a full member of society. Now, if you screw up again, I think there should be a 3-strike law where you're done for the rest of your life. But if we're going to give you another shot, as Christians and Americans do, we should give you every opportunity to make the most of this next chance at life.
Thank you for that. I ran for Congress. I ran in Florida's 27th district against Maria Bira Salazar, which, for a Cuban, I'm kind of disappointed in the Cubans down here that are members of Congress and them championing, more illegal immigration. I don't think you should have an R next to your name if you're doing that. But in this case, let me switch topics here. You did something that I don't think I was searching this. I searched the internet. I used AI. I couldn't find one instance where this happened. Your contract. That is a wild concept, and it's legally binding. You literally go in there and you're like, if I don't do this, I cannot run for a second term. And I thought that was extremely ballsy. And I think actually that shouldn't be like voluntary. I think that should be a requirement. Put your policy, your positions on policy down. And if you break that against the people that voted for you, I don't think you should ever get a second term. You want to speak a little bit about how, I know what the contract is, and I'll post it right under this, but how did you come up with that?
It came to me, I was at an event in Melbourne on the beach, and someone said, you're saying all the right things, but how can we hold you accountable? And my mind instantly went to the idea of accountability in my former life, which is as a business guy, you trust but verify, as President Reagan said, right? Okay, cool, we can shake on it, but let's put it in ink. And so shortly thereafter, I started thinking about what would be in this contract. I call it the contract with Florida. And it starts off by saying that politicians in both parties have lied to us. They've made promises, and second they get into office, they renege on those promises. So I laid out 7 promises, 7 commitments to the state of Florida if I were elected governor. And at the very end, it says that if I break any of these 7 promises, I legally, irrevocably, and permanently forfeit my right to run for re-election as Florida governor in 2030. It is signed under penalty of perjury, state statute 837.02. It is notarized in a civil court here in the state of Florida, and it's legally binding. And so among those, I'll just give you a couple. Among those are, as governor, I would never trade stocks. I would never take money from AIPAC or any other foreign interest group. I would never pass a bill expanding or funding authorization for abortions in the state of Florida. So no matter what it is, I've put it in writing and said, don't trust me necessarily. Don't blindly trust me, because that era of trust me bro politics is over. look at the document, look what I've signed. I've made it very clear what my commitments are. And a lot of people, I got to tell you, Enrique, a lot of people were on the fence about our campaign until I signed that document last Friday. And it has been an incredible outpour of support. People saying, wow, this has never been done. Business people saying, we do this all the time in the business world, but to see it in politics is truly unprecedented. So I was honored to do that. And I will hold myself accountable to the voters, because we need someone who's actually willing to put it in writing, what they believe, what they will do, what they won't do, and then sign the dotted line.
I thought that's amazing, right? As we go into the last half of this interview, we got about like 25 minutes left. We've talked about like your policies, right? But now I want to get into the controversy, because that's where the fun stuff is.
That's all the fun.
Yeah, that's what everybody talks about. And that's why, like, even as an unbiased person, I even came in to, like, when we met at Versailles with like some preconceived, at least a little bit of a preconceived notion. And like, I heard you speak because I got there late. I'm Cuban. I got there late. I'm sitting in the back of the room, and I'm listening to you speak, and I learned as I go. And I'll probably add that speech so people at the bottom in the comments, so people know what I'm talking about. And it's pretty powerful, because you go into like how you feel about the school systems and things that you need to change, but you go into the details. But the controversy, I think, is what stops some people that aren't as informed. People that just go 9 to 5, they don't have time to like sit there on like either social media or look up on your campaign site. They just go by what the mainstream media says, right? So why? Let's start with like a general question. Why do you think people consider you so controversial?
I think it's because I have rejected this idea that I pledge my loyalty to the Republican Party. I pledge my loyalty to the United States of America, and I worship one man, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And so when I buck the trend of Republican politics and talk about the things that we're talking about, whether it's restoring 2A rights for nonviolent ex-cons, whether it's paid maternity leave for moms so they're not in any way incentivized to pursue the disgraceful route of abortion, I get called out and called a party traitor. And I don't hold my alliance to the Republican Party. I think being a real Republican means standing for liberty, not just liberty for those who look like you and me, but liberty for any American citizen that calls Florida home. And I also think that, to be fair, my antics, let's call them that, my antics sometimes are ones where people love them or they hate them. You know, I joined Tinder very early on in the campaign. And
I saw that.
I did that because I wanted to tell young women about my platform for paid maternity leave, that if you're a young working mom in Florida, you should not have to choose between your job and raising your baby. And so my platform is 8 weeks paid maternity leave for every U.S. citizen living in the state of Florida. That's what we're going to do. And so the Tinder stunt, which is really what it was, to be able to communicate that, worked well. And some people said, what is he doing? What is he doing? You know, whatever. But, or even what we did this past weekend, right? Byron Donalds is ducking debates. He said he was going to debate me several times earlier this year. And now that we're surging in the polls, he says we haven't met his arbitrary criteria that he made up 20 minutes ago. And so now he refuses to debate. And so I showed up to his rally and we ratioed him in person. He had 52 people inside. We had 147 outside. And we had a guy in a giant chicken costume calling him what he is. He's a coward. If you're not going to debate, you can't lead. What I really respected about President Trump when he first ran in 2016 was he did 11 debates back to back to back to back to back. He never thought he was too good for debate, even when he became the obvious front runner. And he always took questions, and he always explained in detail what his vision was for the country. I'm eager to do that, and I will do that on July 15th in the CBS News debate, on July 21st in the Fox News debate. Whether Byron Donalds is there or not, couldn't care less. What I care about is showing up for the voters. That's his bad for ducking debates. That's very much a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris strategy. And so, you know, I understand people when they say, well, Fishback's a loudmouth, Fishback's this, that, or the other. I'll be the first to admit that that's true, that we have to show up and we have to push back. And much in the same way that you have engaged in the streets and pushed back to fight for what we collectively believe in. I believe in doing the same thing for our race.
When we talk about controversy, I think the main thing that I guess people that disagree with you call you is anti-Semitic, right? That's like the main, I guess, moniker that they want to stick on you. And in some cases, it's been successful with some people. But why do you think that your opponents call you anti-Semitic? Because I see it all the time from Randy Fine, somebody that used to be a really good friend of mine, Laura Loomer. Right? We're not friends anymore. But I that's like the main thing that when I'm in there, and that's the main gripe I got when I posted the promo for this is how are you going to give this anti-Semitic a platform? Do you hate Jews?
No, I don't. I love my Jewish neighbors, and as governor, I will fight for their integrity, for their dignity, and for their safety as I would for anyone else. I'm a proud Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, but I believe that Jewish Floridians deserve to be protected just as the rest of us do, and I condemn anti-Semitism and its virulent effects on our society. But my criticisms of Benjamin Netanyahu, the fact that his government funds abortion for free up until the moment of the birth, the fact that I've criticized AIPAC's role in American politics, much as I have of any other foreign countries' investments and donations and bribes really in American politics, they've somehow labeled that as anti-Semitic. I want to be very clear. I condemn the hatred of Jews. I condemn the hatred of every religious group, including and especially the most persecuted group on earth, which of course is Christians.
I totally agree with that. I think, and I think you kind of hit it, but correct me if I'm wrong here. I think I don't think you're anti-Semitic. I think that your issue comes. I mean, people's issue with you comes from when we talk about AIPAC, right? And it boils down to this: is foreign influence across the board. Whether I go to my frosty neighbors in the North Canadians or the Mexico in the South, nobody wants, and I definitely don't want, any foreign interference in any way. Some people, I've heard this a whole bunch of times. Well, there's other lobbies. Yeah, well, if they're foreign,
we're against all of them
too. But I do see AIPAC as an issue, right? I see taking money from AIPAC as an issue. It isn't my lane. I'll tell you this, and I think I told you this. That's not my lane. That's not like my focus.
Sure.
Because all of us have our focus, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, why aren't you calling out the child sex trafficking in Arizona? I'm like, dude, listen, I hate child sex trafficking, but I don't have time to sit there. I only have 24 hours a day. I don't know what the fuck's going on in Arizona. You could send me a link, and you want me to denounce it, fine. But I think this is major. But I think it's also, here's my criticism. I think that as the governor of Florida, I think most Floridians don't really give a shit about like Israel, right? And AIPAC or their influence in Florida. And I think that a lot of people get caught up in that. You say, well, we're going to get, it's crazy that they put AIPAC together with Palantir, which is what drew me to you in the first place. But I think also, you get caught up in that a little bit too much. And I think that focusing on those things, like one thing I don't like about DeSantis is that law, that anti-free speech law. Mm-hmm. Like I could criticize. I think it's fair to criticize that across the board. But when we're talking about polling numbers, I find something staggering. And I've been doing this, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen the movement shift. In from 2006 to 2008, it was a Ron Paul revolution, right? And they were politically homeless after the GOP screwed him over completely. And then we created the Tea Party. And I was one of the ones that started the first Tea Party down here in South Florida, Tea Party Club down here. And then the establishment after 2012, after Mitt Romney they took over the Tea Party, the establishment's like, let's just pump money and put our candidates in. And we're politically homeless again until Trump came in and the MAGA movement came in. And, you know, historically, movements don't last forever. They're cultural shift and the cultural shift of the MAGA movement. But what comes next? And I see it in the polling numbers, and I see it when I went to CPAC back in February. You have staggering numbers on the age range, and correct me if I'm wrong here. You know more than I do about the polling numbers. When we go and we isolate the age range of 18 to 35, those numbers completely flip on their head. Why do you think that's like that?
I think we're winning 18 to 25 by 54 points, which is a third world dictator margin, because we are unapologetically America first. 18 to 25, Gen Z gave this administration a shot to not start a new war, to bring down inflation. And so far, the exact opposite has happened. I respect President Trump. I voted for him in 2024. I think he's overall been a good president, but there's certainly things that have frustrated Gen Z about the direction of this administration and his senior advisors. I think Gen Z also lived through the worst attack on our liberty probably ever in American history, which was the COVID and the COVID scamdemic and locking down and not going to school and being robbed of going to church on Sunday and family activities and all of these in-person abilities. And so there's something about Gen Z that they are waking up, and they are ditching the traditional Republican Party, they're ditching the traditional Democrat Party, and they want something that feels closer, honestly, to the 1776 energy that shows up and says, no, we don't want foreign interference in our elections. No, we don't want foreign money being given to our candidates. It doesn't matter what country you represent. We want America first and America alone. And that's what I'm fighting for here in my race. But certainly it's been an honor. I think also being a campaign as accessible as ours has helped. We went to Waffle House many a times, Taco Bell. We'd go to Denny's and have 300 people there, and the line would be stretched across the parking lot. Gen Z respects authenticity. You can't try to be authentic. In fact, if you try to be authentic, then you're definitely inauthentic. I'm one of these people where my wife and I, we go to Waffle House at all random times of the day, whether for lunch, breakfast, or a late night dinner. We go to Denny's, we go to Taco Bell. And so for me to go there as a candidate is just no different than who I am as a person. And I think that my generation, if I can, my generation respects that. And I'll always tell people, including Gen Z, but even some of the older voters I spoke to in the villages last week, that you might not always agree with me, but you're always going to know where I stand. I don't believe in fence riding. I don't believe in pandering or hedging. I don't believe in telling one group something and telling another group something else. I don't do the whole Kamala Harris word salad thing. You just have to tell people the truth, what you believe. And if they don't agree with you, that's okay. I don't agree with myself from 3 years ago half the time. But when the facts change, we have to change with them. And what I tell voters on the campaign trail is, if we agree on enough, I'd be honored to have your vote. And that seems to be working when I talk to voters face to face.
You called it a stunt. And so does your detractors call it a stunt. But those stunts just show me that you have creative ways to get your point across. Right. And I think that's a quality that the governor, Ron DeSantis, has. He will push every button and pull every lever to get his policy across the finish line. And that's what I like about him. Some people thought that he went over the top with Disney. No, I think that he made it a cultural issue, and he said he stood his ground on it, and he won. He beat the biggest corporation that we have in Florida, and he beat him to a pulp because they weren't playing on an uneven playing field. I get that they got a deal back when they built the thing, but I think things have changed. You know, I think when you're a multi-billion-dollar company, I think things should change for you. Let's talk about the debate. You know, look, as I said in the beginning of the show, I actually respect all four candidates, and I won't be sad. I pledge, one thing I do pledge is that I will support whoever comes out of this primary. You know, Byron Donalds, again, it's personal to me because when you're stuck in solitary confinement for 3 years, not on 23-1, 24 hours a day for months on end, and you don't leave that little cell, and you have somebody that supports you, somebody like, you know, people could say whatever the fuck they want about Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know what? She came to see us.
Yeah.
Right? She advocated for us. So I don't care what people think. I don't care what her criticisms of the president are. I don't care what the president's criticism of her are. That loyalty you can't buy. And you can't buy my loyalty. Byron Donalds did something similar. He came to visit. He spoke about it. He pushed the president to pardon. So for that, I'm loyal to him. Jay Collins. We've both spoke extremely well about Ron DeSantis. The fact that he's chosen as the lieutenant governor carries big weight with me. His service record is awesome. He's a little socially awkward, right? I'm going to have him on the show next week. He's a little socially awkward, but so is Ron DeSantis. So I'm like, wait, that trait might work. Paul Renner, amazing dude. Great record while he was speaker. And then James Fishback, right? Like, I think Florida's version of Trump, and I think obviously being the 47th, there's like some like connection there. Numerologists, I don't believe in that shit. Numerologists will be like, oh, 47, whatever. You know, you came out of left field, and I think a lot of people feel the way that I do. And the only way that the only person, let's start with this. The only person that I've seen door hangers in my house for is Byron Donalds. That has to do more with money than anything else, because that's very expensive, very targeted. But the person that only gets that. So what's the other way that I can make a decision, right? Because I had access to you. That's actually very true that you're very accessible. I just look at your Twitter, or I talked to my friend Reno that worked for your campaign, and he sends me, he's like, oh, he's going to be in Miami. So the only other way is to debate, you know? And I didn't see the RPOF's rules beforehand on like what the criteria was. So it doesn't make me believe that they're being honest when they say that. And look, I can't say I know Evan, but I've met him before, and he seems to be like a good man. And I feel like he got pressured by a lot of people, including Randy Fine and Laura Loomer, to disinclude Jay Collins, yourself, and Paul Renner, because they want a crown. I don't want a crown, right? I don't want a crown on my next governor. I want to have a choice. And it's irresponsible, and so easy to do. Just put it together. Name the place.
Easy.
I wish that we had transparency in these elections, because even if Byron Donalds were to win the election, like I just won't feel comfortable with the RPOF again. Mm-hmm. So do you have any comments on the debate? I know you've said it, but just on this show, what comments do you have about the debate?
Well, I think Governor DeSantis put it best. He called it a farce. It's a farce. The establishment, through the vessel of the RPOF, is trying to crown Byron Donalds the nominee. And the best way to do that is to never let there be a debate. I mean, look, if there would never have been a debate between Ron DeSantis and Adam Putnam in 2018,
correct,
Ron DeSantis would have never been the nominee and would have never become governor and would have never protected us and led the way that he has. And so debates historically have been turning points for campaigns. Whether you support me or not, you should always support the idea of any of the four candidates to be able to go up there and to make their pitch and take tough questions. That's why yesterday I formally called on the CBS affiliate that's hosting a debate on July 15th. I formally called on them to extend an invitation to Ron DeSantis to be the sole moderator of the July 15th debate in Jacksonville. They don't have the silly criteria of the RPOF that you need $10 million in bribes to debate. No, they said the top 4 candidates, according to multiple measures of public polling, the top 4 are invited. And that includes me, Lieutenant Governor Collins, Speaker Renner, and of course, Congressman Donalds. And so right now, Paul Renner and I have confirmed. Byron Donalds has said heck no. And Jay Collins is still on the fence. We'll see what he does. I hope he comes to the debate. But my view is really simple. If you can't debate, you can't lead. If you're not willing to take questions amongst your fellow Republicans, how can you be expected to stand up to the Democrats when they try to pull the stunts that they've pulled in California and in New York? And on that debate stage on July 15th, I'll make very clear my vision for the state, which is unapologetically conservative, that builds on the legacy of Ron DeSantis, and that really works to make Florida affordable once again for families, for young workers, and of course, for our seniors.
So here, I'm going to ask you like an RN question. So I understand morally, and I'm with you on it, but can you blame Byron Donalds for not wanting to debate and just wanting, like you could blame the RPOF,
sure,
obviously. Right, because they're not supposed to endorse a candidate. They're not even supposed to push a candidate, not even lightly, right? But can you blame Byron Donalds and be like, I don't need to do it because the RPOF is on my side, like strategically,
yeah,
right? And I'm not asking you to bend your morals here, but do you understand strategically if you were Byron
I completely
Donalds?
understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to do the Kamala Harris-Joe Biden strategy from 2020, which was don't cause a ruckus, don't put yourself out there too much, don't be vulnerable, don't take tough questions, just autopilot, just cruise to the way of the nomination, get the nomination, and then try to win the general. And I think that's not a good strategy. It's not fair to the voters. Strategically, certainly it makes sense. But Byron Donalds has everything to lose by going on that debate stage, and he should. I can tell you right now, if I had Byron Donalds' poll numbers, I'd probably have 5 consultants in my ear telling me not to debate, but I'll be on that debate stage. And I'll tell you right now, when I become governor in January, and if I have a primary challenger in the 2030 election, no matter what, I will be on that debate stage to take tough questions because you deserve someone who will answer those questions, who will stand shoulder to shoulder, side by side with the competition and engage in the sacred art of free speech and open debate. It's what's made our country great. Our friend Charlie Kirk died quite literally in the act of debating. And I think that Byron Donalds owes it to the voters to take those questions. Let's just say, for example, Enrique, that Byron was the only person running for governor, that literally no one else were qualified in this race to run. I still think he should go up there for an hour and a half and take questions from moderators and take questions from voters, because sometimes not voting for a candidate and having as much information can be just as powerful. And so that's my view on all of this.
I was a spokesperson for the Proud Boys for many years. And I got to talk about, I actually had to say sometimes things that I don't agree with because the club that's the message that they wanted to push out, whether it was a press release or something. Like, I got outvoted. I respected the vote. When it comes to this debate, and we're talking about like putting it together by the RPOF, I think it's disgusting. I think and I think the messaging also that, hey, we're just going to put this guy up, and that's it. I don't like here and to speak about debating or interviews or stuff like that. When I was doing interviews, when I was a spokesperson for the organization, the chairman of the organization, I didn't want to go to Breitbart. I didn't want to go. I love Alex Jones. I just love going on Alex's show just because it's fun. I don't like friendly interviews. Like, you know what my dream interview is? I want fucking Rachel Maddow to call me, and I want to spar with like the craziest leftists, because I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid. My views will never change, right? I'm 42 years old. There's nothing, you can't move me. I'm immovable for my views, and I'm centered in my views, and I could debate why I feel the way I do. So I'm not afraid to be in front of somebody that's going to challenge my views. And I think that is extremely healthy for the RPOF to do that. It brings confidence. So I implore, just like in my message, I tagged you in it. I tagged all the candidates, including Byron. And I implored Evan, I'm like, hey, reverse course. You know what he did? He followed me and he liked it. I'm like, wait, what? You're sitting there, you're watching this, and then you're public messaging. I think Evan wants debates. I think he's just being pressured not to.
And that may be the case, but ultimately, we are pressured to do things that we don't want to do all the time.
I agree.
What makes us good moral men is standing up to that pressure and say, no, I'm not gonna take the money. I'm willing to take the heat if it means doing the right thing. And the right thing for Chairman Power to do is to have a debate at the Sunshine Showdown with the 4 qualified candidates and let the voters decide who our nominee is going to be.
Evan, listen up. Not just to him, listen to me. I'm the undecided voter. I want to see these guys spar, and I want to see these guys get tested. And that idea of having Ron DeSantis as a moderator is fucking great. Okay, so here, closing up, and I think this would probably be like a debate thing. Can you say something good about each one of your 3 opponents?
Absolutely. I'll start with Congressman Donalds. I actually had dinner with him last August. He and his wife, Capitol Grill in Naples. It was a beautiful meal. I'll tell you, he loves his wife. He loves his 3 sons. I've met them all. I think they're very impressive. It's a beautiful family. For Speaker Renner, he presided over a historic period. Governor DeSantis recognized that Speaker Renner shepherded through the good conservative legislation that really made Governor DeSantis' first term what it was. And then for Lieutenant Governor Collins, the ability to requalify with an amputated leg as a United States Green Beret is extraordinary. I think these 3 men are all good men, are all Christian men, and they are deserving of the same respect as any of our neighbors would be. And I truly wish them the best in not just this race, but in life.
You know, I didn't even know he was missing his leg. I've met him a whole bunch of times. We've talked. We've sat down. I didn't know. I met him at Mar-a-Lago at a dinner at the actual West Palm Beach Republican Party dinner. And I didn't know that. I didn't find that out till much later. He walks perfect. You don't notice. I think that him being able to requalify, like you said, is amazing. So I'm going to ask you your typical Republican Party question. Will you support, if you aren't the nominee, will you support the primary, the winner of the primaries for the Republicans?
The answer is it depends. It depends on what their policy platform is. I don't vote based on whether there's an R or a D next to your name. Hypothetically, if the Republican nominee ran on a platform of gun control, it doesn't matter if they're a Republican. I'm not going to give my loyalty to someone who wants to take away our Second Amendment rights. And so to that question, I'd have to know what their platform is the day after the primary. Where are their positions? I have some real questions about Congressman Donald's position on data centers. I oppose them. I want to stop them outright in the state of Florida. The governor has the authority to do that with the legislature, using something called statewide preemption, which revokes the authority of county commissions to recklessly approve data centers anywhere in the state. I would do that. Congressman Donalds, on the other hand, says he wants to speed up their construction, that data centers are a positive for communities, and Republicans and Democrats all over the state disagree with that. And so honestly, 1, it depends, but 2, it doesn't even matter. Enrique, I say this with all sincerity and humility. I will be the Republican nominee on August 18th, and I will rebuild our party. I will unify Florida Republicans. We'll build out a Big Tent, and we will take down the Democrat, David Jolly, who is a gun-grabbing, vaccine-mandating progressive, a man who said 2 years ago that he's no fan of gun culture, no fan of the Second Amendment, says he wants to reinstate COVID-19 vaccines for kids to go back to public school. We cannot let a Democrat win in Florida. We cannot let them strip us of our liberties. And as governor and as a Republican nominee, we will win this election in November, and we will preserve the conservative leadership of Ron DeSantis in Tallahassee.
You know what drew me to you? What drew me to you? And we had this conversation, but I want to have it really quick for the audience. I woke up one morning and I opened my Twitter, and I was in prison when it changed from Twitter to X. So excuse me to the Zoomers that call it X now. I saw a tweet from Palantir, and it said that they're moving to Miami. And, you know, I got excited for a second, not because I wanted Palantir. I'm like, oh, man, my entire friends, all my right-wing friends and all the Republicans here are going to hate it. I saw the opposite, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? It's like I stepped into a portal, and I'm like, how are you championing for a company like Palantir? And if you're watching, if you don't know what Palantir is, please look it up. Like the actual what it is, not what the company is. And I come across your tweet, and you're like, absolutely not. We don't want Palantir here. We're going to stop Palantir. And I was like, all right, I was super excited. And then I thought about it. I'm like, wait, how's he going to implement this? And you gave me the answer to it. And it starts at a local level, how you stop Palantir and these data centers from being created here in the state. I want businesses to come into Florida, but I don't want these data centers. I don't want these evil companies. We're building the weapon that is going to be the demise of humanity.
Indeed. Growing up, my childhood favorite movie was Terminator Judgment Day. And it's crazy to think that people would willingly build the very weapon that would destroy humanity. And I don't say this with hyperbole. I don't say this to exaggerate. Palantir is a threat to every American's civil liberties. The same weapons that are deployed on foreign battlefields should never be aimed at American citizens on U.S. soil. And so as governor, I oppose Palantir, but more importantly, I would revoke the funding of any local county government that chose to do business with Palantir. As governor, I would cancel any state contract with Palantir, because I am not willing to foolishly throw ourselves at this idea of zero crime, which of course can never happen, to be able to hand over our essential liberty. Ben Franklin said it best: if you would trade essential liberty for temporary security, you deserve and you will get neither. And so I will heed the advice of Dr. Franklin, our founding father, and I will make sure that Palantir never, ever has a foothold. You know, Enrique, you talked about something earlier in the question, which is, you gave the detail. My wife always bugs me because I'm so long-winded, but voters deserve to know not just the what I believe, but how I will achieve what I believe. Okay, great, James. You're the only candidate that says you'll block data centers in every single county. Great. How will you achieve that? And then I turn to things like statewide preemption authority that the governor can pass with the legislature with a single vote. So instead of having Miami-Dade County have to fight off data centers and Hernando County have to fight them in Glades County and Palm Beach, we can take one vote in one instance to forever prevent data centers from being built in Florida. And that's the business side of me that just is not worried about political norms or worried about, well, how are we going to appease certain people? My whole focus in my business career was outcomes-based. Get the job done no matter what. If my boss told me to do something, told me to invest in this, that, or the other, I couldn't come back and say, well, it didn't work. Well, it didn't. No, I had to get the job done no matter what. And that's how I would lead as Florida's next governor.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, James. Last question. It's a simple one. 48th president of the United States. If you got to choose yourself, who the 48th president, it could be anybody, who would you choose?
I would make it, I'll tell you the whole ticket, and it could be one order or the other, but I think it would be a ticket between Governor Ron DeSantis and Tucker Carlson.
That is the most Florida fucking answer I've ever heard in my life.
Both of which, by the way, are Florida residents. So it would be the first ever all Florida ticket. I think Tucker's a brilliant communicator.
Yes.
He is superb on foreign policy. Governor DeSantis has a really great track record in domestic policy. I think those two working together, do I agree with them on everything? Of course not. But I think that at this time, I don't want to go back to the establishment Republican Party days of the Mitt Romneys and the Dick Cheneys of the world and the Koch brothers. I want a real radical revolutionary ticket. And I'd be hard-pressed to find someone other than Ron DeSantis and Tucker Carlson to represent that in 28.
Amen to that. Yeah, I think Ron DeSantis would be a great president. I've already told you why I think he'll be a great president. James, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much. And I think that's the ability to have access to you, to listen to you, to speak to you one-on-one, because you stayed quite a bit of time after you finished speaking, talking to everybody. There was a line. You talked to everybody in the line. So I appreciate you for coming on. Any last words for the residents of Florida and for our viewers?
What I would say is this. I didn't come on here, Enrique, to ask anybody to vote for me. I came on here to ask for the opportunity to earn their trust. And there are 62 days between now and the August 18th primary. And my hope is that anyone watching will go to fishback2026.com. I don't want you to donate. I don't need you to donate. What I'd love you to do is spend 5 minutes reading our platform, looking at the details of our plan to crack down on high property taxes and high HOA fees, our plan to put more money in your pocket, to stand up for Social Security, to invest in our infrastructure, to keep our law and order emphasis from Ron DeSantis. And if I am able to earn your trust, I'm asking you for the opportunity to earn your vote on August 18th, to show up, not just alone, but to show up with your entire household and vote for me on August 18th. And together we can continue the great work of Ron DeSantis and keep Florida the freest state in the union.
Thank you for that, James. Thank you for joining the War Boys. You guys, I appreciate you guys for watching. Go to @Warboys Studios and mash the post notification button. James, actually, where is it that they can find you? I think everybody that I know follows you, but where
Fishback2026.com.
There we go. Thank you, James. Can you stay a little bit longer, or keep your computer open so we could upload?
I will. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And on that note, we are out.
Load up on guns and bring your friends. It's fun to lose and to pretend she's overboard and self-assured. Oh no, I know a dirty word. Hello.
Prosecutor said Ethan Nordine was the undisputed leader of the group that day as they tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power.
An FBI agent arrested Proud Boys former national chairman Enrique Tarrio at this home in Miami. By 2 this afternoon, he was in federal court.
Here we are now.